Sometimes you get, a little bit of information from your directors. They were asking what exactly I have in my dark cup. But anyway, it's September, and many take time to say more prayers for those who believe in the somewhat evil of what they call the Ember Month. Well, I still don't get how, the recklessness of anyone can be attributed to a poor month ending with such sound. Now, so what's your belief as we move closer and closer to maybe first ushering elections and again the big one of 2019? Well, it's always been from one newsy week to another. Well, I told you last week, the last time, that is either you call it a defection or a swap. Former Kano State Governor is now with the APC. Did he switch places with Konkonso? There's only one way to know that, and that's having a peep in the political kitchen. Also, I recall I had a small poultry growing up. My chicks were wet on this rainy day. I had a lamp in a carton to heat them up. Something terrible happened. I smoked them out with that lamp, and I cried for days, and I mean it. So I understand when I see politicians do their bit of crying. President Buhari once cried. Governor Fasua cried. Atiku just joined in, and some others may join. But there's also news from the DSS. Now, I almost jumped out, screaming out loud and saying, at last someone is signing or dishing out statements with a name and a face to it. Afunaya Peter, the public relations officer of the DSS, is asking the media specifically to tread with caution about reporting some security issues in the DSS. Well, he says it's unhealthy for the service and indeed Nigeria. Recall all that news going around, and he's giving, the country and the nation something to chew on, and he's saying all is well with the service and he will be feeding the people from time to time. And I'm certain in the days ahead, we'll be having him here on the show. Now, stove on, pot on fire. Did I hear you ask, what's cooking? Well, it's Political Stew. I'm Sulaiman Aleda. Welcome. I'm yet to see that human who'd say, I love fake news. Now, how do you even recognize fake news? The last big one was that James Ibori was coming to the APC. Political Stew reached out, and when it found out that actually wasn't true. But that's what's true. A lot of people are asking is, many of these young leaders are steaming hot and ready to go, and they are ready to serve the nation. But so today we'll explore that and also speak of the alternatives. There are cracks in the Pact. Sometimes you look at it and see how much of impact is the Pact, how impactful has the Pact become. There's presidential aspirants coming together. Are they truly and really together? Is there truly an alternative? You can watch us live online on the go at tvcnews.tv/streaming. We're also live on YouTube, TVC News Nigeria Live, and on youtube.com/political stew. You can also watch us live on Facebook. Well, pretty much plenty of things to talk about, not what's in the cup, but what's really cooking in the nation. I'll be back, and when I come back, let's pretty much talk about what this impact, or did I say impact? What the Pact is about. Now we're looking at what exactly this is about. Talking about the Pact, we have one of the presidential aspirants here joining us live, who is also an economist. Tope Fasua. He's the presidential aspirant for the ANRP. Good to have you join us on Political Stew.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm so excited that you could make it. First, one of the things that I thought we were going to look at, first we'll talk about the Pact, but I also have something I'll be pulling out of the shelf pretty much later. But again, tell us what this Pact is about. We saw you and the others come together to choose a particular candidate.
Right. Well, Pact is actually...
it's an acronym.
Is an acronym, is the rave of the moment. You know, everybody's talking about Pact and so on. It's presidential aspirants coming together. You know, Pact, a very compact name, you'd say. And so under the Pact, we had about, at its peak, about 16 presidential aspirants, you know, coming together to say, Nigerians wanted us to bring just one person, you know, for whatever reason, you know. But I think the thinking of Nigerians is that it's easier if we don't split the vote, and if we could agree on one person that we could just focus on and all of that. Of course, the issue was then, what process are we going to use? But basically, that's what Pact is about.
Yeah. So what we talk about, the presidential aspirants coming together, and you say this is the demand of Nigerians, young Nigerians, asking that everyone should, you know, come together. That reminds me of, the cartoon character Voltron all coming together to see how they can actually defend this, defend this agenda. Yeah. Tell us more of this. 16, and now they have someone. Are you part of the 15 who agreed to pull, you know, the resources and support behind just one person?
No, because I think we differed on the basis of procedure. I did offer some ideas about how we could go about it, and also I felt that we shouldn't have been in a rush, right? And of course, at some point, some of the disagreements were not quite reconcilable, so a few people stepped off, you know. I think at the end of the day, about 11 people were there on that day, and I think even on that day, a few of them left before the votes, right? So perhaps about 9 people voted. About 7 people did the final votes. You know, I don't know, I wasn't there. I didn't even watch it online, but a lot of people did. But basically, on the basis of principle, because I believe that we, number one, ought to have stretched it out a little bit longer, that everybody ought to have gone back to their parties to get their party nominations, right? Before coming back. That's when you know you have a skin in the game. If you don't even have a party, or you're not sure that your party is going to even choose you at the end of the day.
So you're saying they should have gone into, you know, the primaries of their political party to come out as candidates, flag bearer of such political parties before they come for this.
They ought to have carried the political parties along. Otherwise, you're just kidding, right? Because the person, like you gave that great analogy of the Voltron, right? Whoever was going to emerge on Pact would be someone who didn't have to go back to subject themselves to another process elsewhere. It was just a case of we're giving the final baton to someone who's going to race to the finish, right?
So it's a case of what if you don't get a ticket? Absolutely.
So what if you don't get it? Now, what if the person that they chose, I didn't choose, doesn't get a ticket on his platform? I mean, that means it's a great waste of time. And so those are the you know, and I felt also that we ought to have had debate, and people ought to be coming to Nigerians on the strength of their ideas. And if we had had debates, it would have allowed Nigerians to key into the project and have a buy-in and feel like they're part of it. I felt we should have even opened the meetings up, maybe via Facebook Live or something, you know, and let Nigerians see what's going on. We could have actually seized the moment and seized the narrative from you know, the cross-carpeting, defection and all of that stuff, which is not advancing the cause of Nigerians, so to speak. You know, we could have done that, but yeah, we lost the opportunity. If we could come back, well, that's a chance. You know, some guys are saying, okay, let's come and try and repair the damage. And though I felt the damage oughtn't to have been made in the first place, but if that's the case, then yeah, so be it.
How bad is this damage?
I don't think it's really bad. I think that Nigerians asking for that one person so quickly is actually a show of naivety because, this is a very big stakes issue. You understand? We're talking about the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's big stakes. It's high stakes game, and so it's not what you want to do from a microwave approach. You don't use a microwave approach to do that. So ordinarily speaking, I don't see that much damage. I knew it was going to pan out this way, and everybody would have to go back to the drawing board. Yeah, if we called another meeting now, will people want to go? I doubt. Or perhaps it depends on who's calling the meeting. But of course, a bit of trust has been eroded, And again, you see what happened at the end of the day. The person who bought the brunt was Kingsley Moghalu, who I believe has quite a few ideas, good ideas, and quite a few strengths, So this is not the time. It's like you're going to the Olympics, right? And then you're knocking off maybe one of your best guys at the prelim stage, not even the heat. We're not even. So it's very important. I don't know how it's going to pan out from going forward, really.
Mr. Fasua, does it look to you that this is deja vu? The young people towing the line of the old politicians who wake up and just have what they want to call, consensus candidate, and that's what the young people are still doing.
Oh, no. You're talking about the whole idea of having a consensus candidate at all. Again, it's not a product of the young people then. It's what Nigerians said they wanted.
How did we exactly gauge what Nigerians wanted?
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, if you...
Did you believe that in the first place?
Believed what?
That was what Nigerians wanted?
I did, As a matter of fact, it was such a frequently used word.
So if you did, why aren't you accepting it?
If you went on big data, for example, if you did, run through big data in Nigeria, what were people talking about on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you'd see that was a constant thing that people were asking for. Now, the issue is, like you rightly said, should we be talking about that? Why aren't you allowing people to run on their strengths and allow the process to play out itself very transparently? And again, that's the first thing. But again, the second issue will now be, we are fairly young people. I thought you'd be asking me, does this also show that the young people can come together just like the old people can come together? In which case, I'd have told you that, hey, at the end of the day, Nigerians are Nigerians. Whether among the young people, you have good people, you have bad people.
But I asked you,
among the old people, you have the good people and the bad people as well.
When you said you believed that was a call, by Nigerians, and I went on,
exactly.
I was asking, why is it that if you believe that was a call by Nigerians, you're not part of it?
Oh, no, exactly. So the call from Nigerians was they wanted this process to take place, and I subjected myself to it by going there the first time, having the first meeting, and then the second meeting. And of course, when you're going to join a group, it depends. And of course, Nigerians want a consensus. CUPP is also trying to put up a sort of consensus, right? And I think there's going to be quite a few of these things going on transparently. And again, that's the first thing. But again, the second issue will now be, we are fairly young people. I thought you'd be asking me, does this also show that the young people can come together just like the old people can come together? In which case, I'd have told you that, hey, at the end of the day, Nigerians are Nigerians. Whether among the young people, you have good people, you have bad people.
But I asked you,
among the old people,
again,
you have the good people
and
the bad people as well.
When you said you believed that was a call, by Nigerians, and I went on,
exactly.
I was asking, why is it that if you believe that was a call by Nigerians, you're not part of it?
Oh, no, exactly. So the call from Nigerians was they wanted this process to take place, and I subjected myself to it by going there the first time, having the first meeting, and then the second meeting. And of course, when you're going to join a group, it depends. And of course, Nigerians want a consensus. CUPP is also trying to put up a sort of consensus, right? And I think there's going to be quite a few of these things going on. The issue will now be when you join a group, you want to have a say. You want to have an input in how things are done and the final culmination of that group, So it was when it was evident that this wasn't going to happen that I knew. And, I actually tried to negotiate and talk to them and say, guys, this thing won't work. At some point, we were told, well, if you know this is not going to work for you, the best thing for you is to exit. And I exited. So that was actually my saving grace.
Well, if you call that your saving grace, I think I need to bring this. And I'm hoping that my viewers will say this. This is... Oh my God. about 27-page manifesto.
Yeah.
And this is something, over the years, I've actually had the privilege of seeing 3 general elections as a journalist, and I haven't, for once, seen anyone come with this voluminous manifesto. So this document, my manifesto, Tope Fasua, the revolution of ideas, is it a book or truly your manifesto as you go?
Yeah, I always call it, I say it's like my operations manual for how Nigeria should be run, because the normal thing you hear in manifestos is I'm going to build hospitals everywhere, I'm going to build schools. Those things should be given, right? You know, I mean, they're so pedestrian. Like, you know, what I think we should be doing is to say, okay, where are you taking the country to? And, you know, for example, I'm an economist, but I know as much that you can't fix the economy except you fix the people. So where's the sociology coming out? Where are you going to define the new philosophy for Nigerians? All of that is in here. And it's replete with a lot of infographics and so on. Because, for example, I'm not just saying I'm going to do this. I'm also saying, okay, where do we find the money? Then I take you through how we can rejig the system, what kind of taxes we should be getting, how it's done elsewhere, you know, and all of that stuff. You know, so I see it as an operational manner because, again, what young people like me are bringing forward, and what I particularly am bringing forward, is basically a fact and figures-based kind of governance, right? Very important. We live in the age of data. Data is the currency. Unfortunately, many of the old guys that are there now, they can't key into that fact, you know, because it's just not their era. So fact and figures based, sense of urgency, all right? You know, because again, as young people, what we're known for is that energy and urgency. And then, of course, this is about busting a lot of myths. For example, I'm saying Nigeria should be growing at 15%. And people say, oh, no, it's not. It's never happened before. I've seen even economists like me, oh, it's not. The fact that it's never happened before doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. According to George Bernard Shaw, people see things that are here and they ask why. But I think about things that don't exist and I ask why not? You know, who says we can? But 15%, and again, you know, the economic history that we read probably omitted the aspect of how were the superpowers of today growing when they were at our stage. Now, the analogy is this. A child of 1 and a person of 20 who's supposed to be growing faster? A child of 1. So we're still way down there. We need to be catching up very much faster. However, this last quarter, the United States economy grew by 4.1%. And Nigeria, the child, grew by 1.5%, which is an anomaly. Now, if you're going to have inflation at 11%, down from 20, you're going to have interest rates at 30% in the banks and so on. Now you're growing at 1.5%, when even your population is growing at 3%. You see that you're in reverse.
So,
so those are the kind of
in
ideas
your
that
analogy and in your studies, because you're a researcher, known one at that, what are those indices you have recognized as, you know, I don't want to talk about the problems now. I'm talking about those things that you have recognized that you already have a recipe to solve and should you be president? Okay,
first, you know, you will talk about the issue of diversifying the economy. And if you think about diversifying the economy, you realize that it's not in any textbook, right? However, the only way you can diversify an economy is you can begin to get an idea, is to look at an economy that's diversified. For example, the United States economy. United States is a country where people don't bother getting foreign passports, because if you're living in Alaska like Sarah Palin, and it's always cold there. I mean, she didn't get an international passport until she tried to be vice president to McCain, you know. So all you have to do is move from Alaska to Las Vegas, where probably it never rains, you know. If you wanted education, you went to Boston, Massachusetts, Harvard is there, MIT is there, and so on. You know, if you wanted financial markets, you went to New York and stuff, you know. So you can actually live and die, not live in America. That's a diversified economy. Everything an American needs is produced by an American within America. So whereas we're going to fight the WTO war, right, and try to do the globalization stuff, you know, but the most important thing is when you're able to produce the things that your people need sustainably for them and cheaply and competitively, they won't have to look elsewhere. So the irreducible minimum is, number one, we must feed ourselves. But the way we're going to have to do that is to bring science from the universities and the polytechnics into agriculture. These days, people are talking about, you know, vertical farming. People are talking about greenhouses. a lot of science has gone into agric and things have changed. So within a very short, small space, you're getting so much in terms of yield. And in countries that are thinking and where this science has made it into agriculture, they get perhaps per square, per hectare or per acre, whatever, they get like 200 times what we will get in Nigeria.
So in all of this,
so that's the first one. That's the food aspect. Then you have to talk about our security. I believe that we have the unskilled labor right now. That's what we have in this country. Our problem is actually not university graduates, but people who have left secondary school who don't have a place of what to do, and they're all over the place. Most crime is committed at that level. So ensure your own security. Number three, tidy up your environment. Number four, clothe yourself. And number five, house yourself.
You know, when we talk about most crimes, you know, sometimes we just try to overlook and try to talk about the small time crimes, you know. But there's also the big ones, which we you want to call them corruption, or you want to call them any kind of funny names, but we also have the big ones. But in all of this, where I'm headed is that perhaps you should tell the nation how you think that this can work, because this is not the first time Nigerians have had people speak eloquently, you know, with figures that truly you can always check and you realize that these are figures, verifiable facts and figures. But how can you put them into, you know, workings to make sure that Nigerians truly get to where they wanted, you know, they should be? For instance, you have highlighted how to put food on our table, how to solve the problems of unemployment, security, youth restiveness, and a couple of others.
Yeah.
These are things that the governments over the years have also highlighted.
Absolutely.
So how do you make a difference should you be there?
So perhaps one of the things, you know, it's going to be a kind of multi-pronged approach. It's kind of systemic approach that you have to use. For example, I talk about, you know, again, go back to the issue of facts and figures. I talk about, you know, Nigeria is really under budgeting for its people, under providing for its people. You see, what I'm offering and what I'm bringing to the table is a paradigm shift to say, listen, let's forget everything we know. For example, Einstein used to say, you know, education is what remains when you forget everything that you were taught in school. So now is when we should show our education, right? So we're talking about all of these things, and yes, they seem to be things that people have promised, but I showed the how in this document to say, okay, this is where we can get the funding from. For example, I talked about our budgeting process, for example, the system of budgeting that doesn't tie to what the people need and doesn't demand any feedback from what the people need. I talked about even the revenue sources, for example, what we can generate in terms of capital gains taxes, in terms of inheritance taxes, and a lot of said it little, you know, means. I even moved beyond the issue of taxation to say that what a government earns is not only taxation, and we shouldn't focus so much on taxation, which kind of has a kind of it kind of puts people off. People don't want to pay taxes anywhere in the world. But hey, what a government earns is taxation, fees, fines, levies, duties, and all of this. On all of these fronts, we are losing money in the country. So if we can plug the holes in all of this, if we can mainstream, and I know that there are, you know, embedded interest and all of that, which are ensuring we don't get what we need to get in those areas. If we can mainstream all of this, we're going to be generating the funds to do these things. However, the part of the paradigm shift we need to attain is also to understand that the next level of growth for this country is actually in the rural areas and in the local governments. So if we need to kind of be intervening at that level in order to bring out a spot of growth for this country.
I'm really hoping that we can keep this conversation going. Many thanks for finding time to join us and for shifting your flight to making it to our political kitchen. Tope Fasua, many thanks for speaking with us. We'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll be looking at the issue of having an alternative, and also there is a movement that is actually gaining real big force. That's when we return.